Hi, my name is 𝗠𝗨𝗦, and I'm a middle-aged woman married to a guy named Patrick. We have 5 kids, and I work as a pharmacist. My real passion is that I am a pastor of the Vietnamese First Baptist Church. When I was 10 years old, I said something very odd. My dad asked me when we were driving home one day at night, taking me home from my violin lesson. He asked me, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "Well, I want to serve God," because in my 10-year-old mind and the way that I grew up, I just thought that everything that I do in life will probably not last, but if I serve God, it'll last forever. So I told him I want to serve God, having completely no idea what that means or what that's going to be like, but that's what I was going to do. So that was 10 years old. And now I want to tell you a little bit about my faith and where it comes from. And I would say it comes from my upbringing, mainly from my dad. He believed in God when he was around 7 or 8 years old. At that time in Vietnam, the missionaries had first started coming to Vietnam, and they were preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. They were going from the south to the north, setting up churches, opening churches, and training Vietnamese pastors. And so his mother believed in Jesus and was attending church, and she was given a Bible, but she was illiterate, and so she couldn't read. So every day she would ask him to read the Bible for her, and that's how he came to know Jesus and started attending church. And at 17 or 18 years of age, after high school, he dedicated his life to serving God, and he went to a seminary to become a pastor, and he served God ever since. But after 1975, when the communists took over the South, they closed all the churches, and anybody who had close connections with, the Western religions or anything outside of Vietnam was suspicious, under the suspicious eye. So he took the family. I have 6 brothers and 1 little sister. He took our whole family, and we lived at the very southern tip of Vietnam, literally in a jungle. It was called 𝗠𝗨𝗦𝗜𝗖, which is the jungle down on the southern tip. And I remember there were so many mosquitoes at night. You can just reach out and just grab a handful. So that's where we lived, and he got papers. You had to get government permission to do everything. He got papers to be a fisherman. So nobody really knew who we were, what we were doing. They just knew that my dad had a boat, and every day he would take my brothers out to go fishing in the ocean. But what he was really doing was he was planning an escape. And you have to understand, he was born in the inland, and so he might have driven a boat in the rivers, but never on the open sea. So this speaks to his faith. He prayed, and he did all the research he could. He read books on how to navigate using the stars and the sun and on the ocean. And then he practiced every day by taking my brothers out to go fishing. And everybody was starving, and I remember we just ate what my brothers caught. And I always say that my brothers were terrible fishermen because we didn't get a lot to eat. But one day he took our family, and we escaped. And there's some little details. My mom passed away shortly after my sister was born, and so my dad sent her and the brother next to me to my aunt because she recently had a baby and she had milk. So they got left behind when we escaped because a friend who was supposed to pick them up and meet my dad's boat, he never showed up. He got lost. He couldn't find my dad. So, starting out on our escape, he was a little heartbroken that 2 of his kids couldn't make it. And then on the journey, I don't remember a whole lot. I just remember a lot of open seas. But to me, as a kid, I was maybe around 3 or 4. It was all good until one day we came across Thai pirates. During that time, this was around 1983. During that time, a lot of Vietnamese people escaped by boat. And so the pirates would rob them because a lot of people, when they left, they took all their precious belongings. But my dad built his own boat, and we didn't take any passengers, just his family and a couple of other cousins. So we didn't have anything. So they came aboard, they looked around for anything precious to steal, but there was nothing. And they went back to their boat until one of them saw my sister, and she was only 13 at that time. And so he came back and he took her. And my dad said there was nothing he could do because they had guns, and he risked the lives of everyone on our boat. So I couldn't imagine how he felt, the hurt. And before they left, they hit our boat. Our boat was just a small fishing boat, and they hit our boat with their metal ship, and they put a hole in the front of the ship. And so after that, my dad turned the ship so that the waves would hit the good side and not the bad side, and we just drifted until we hit land. And then we were taken to the refugee camps, and after 2.5 years in refugee camps, we came to Ardmore, Oklahoma, and that's where we got our first start in living in America. It was wonderful. We were sponsored by the First Baptist Church in Ardmore, Oklahoma, and I spent most of my childhood in Texas, and when I was in high school, we moved here to Oklahoma City, where my dad pastored the Vietnamese congregation that was currently meeting in the First Baptist Church in downtown Oklahoma City. The faith of my dad that he passed down to all of us as kids, a firm trust in God, and a firm trust in his goodness, no matter what we may face in life that would make us think differently. My father still continued to trust in God, and he forgave, and he continued to be a servant of God. He pastored the church in Texas, and then up until his retirement, and when he passed away, he was at our church, the Vietnamese First Baptist Church. After I finished college and I was working as a pharmacist, the pastor in our church, my dad had retired and there was another pastor. He encouraged people to go and serve God, go to seminary if they had a heart to serve God. And I remembered thinking, why not? When I was in pharmacy school, there was a Christian Medical and Dental Association, and I had wanted to become a missionary. And so I went there thinking that I would, that God would speak to me, and missionary would be the thing that God would call me to. I had looked into it. I loved the idea. But for some odd reason, when I was actually down at the beautiful foothills of the Andes in Bolivia, ministering to the Bolivians, I just kept thinking about the Vietnamese people in Oklahoma City. It was very strange. And I still feel it now, that love, the overwhelming love that God placed in my heart for the Vietnamese people. And this is partly because in the smaller town I grew up in Texas, there weren't a whole lot of Asians. In fact, I was the only Asian for a very long time in my school. So when I got to Oklahoma City, I saw Asians everywhere, at the Asian store and at the Walmart, and I loved it. And My first time back to Vietnam, literally they were Vietnamese people everywhere because I was in Vietnam, and I just felt a sense of complete joy and happiness and a sense of belonging and an overwhelming sense of love for Vietnamese people and the Asian people. I came back, and when the pastor said, you know, those of you who have a calling to serve God, go to a seminary and become a pastor, and he would support us. And so I did. I went to Oklahoma Christian. I got my master's of ministry there, and it was just a very gradual process. Growing up as a Christian, I've always was taught to read the Bible. I was taught the Bible stories, but still, I always had doubts sometimes. Does God really exist? Is he really real? You know, in those moments, like when I was 10 years old and I knew I wanted to serve God, those moments are real. But then the moments of doubt is real also. And it comes and it goes, and you can't deny it. And I was the same. You know, I knew about God, and I saw my dad's faith, but I would say that every person, you have to find your faith, and you have to own your faith, and you have to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And this happened for me when I went to college. My first year at the University of Oklahoma, I was a commuter. You know, back then gas was cheap. It was like 98 cents. And so I drove to school every day. And as a commuter, the lot filled up around 8 a.m. So you had to get there like an hour and a half before 8 a.m. To even find a parking spot. So I drove there early. And I told God, sitting in my car every day, that God, if you are really real, you have to make yourself known. You have to prove it to me so that I can know without a shadow of a doubt, because I felt the doubt. I hear the questions in my mind all the time. Is God really real? But then I also had a bigger problem that I could not connect. Growing up in a Christian family and reading the Bible, you always knew what was right and what was wrong, what was good and what was bad. But what I could not connect was, why did God have such high standards for people? Knowing that we are imperfect and that we can't achieve it, it's just like setting people up for failure. And that's what I felt like. And I was not satisfied. That did not sit well with me. And so that was the main thing. I said, God, you have to prove yourself to me. Basically, I told him, you have to make sense, and this doesn't make sense to me. But I told him, I will spend this time that I have my first semester, and I will read through the Bible. And I've read the Bible for a large part of my life up until I was 18 years old. But I decided to read through it during those early morning hours where I sat in the commuter parking lot. And I really thought, you know, this was a turning point in my life. I was starting college. I was beginning to make independent choices, independent from my parents and my family and my church. And I really thought, you know, this is the point where if God didn't show himself, you know, there are going to be some changes in my life, meaning that I'm just going to break away from my faith. And, you know, see what else is out there. Because I knew that I grew up in this faith. Some people call it a bubble, but it could be a bubble. I don't know. You just grow up surrounded by people of faith, by the Bible. And if things don't make sense, you got to look for something else. And that's what I was going to do my first year of college. It was the perfect time. It was the perfect scenario. It was the perfect environment to just break away from all those things of your childhood. So that's what I was going to do. And that was my ultimatum for God. Well, that semester, I read from the book of Matthew. And not far into it, I felt the overwhelming presence of God. And you can still see it now, probably in my face. But I have to tell you, I cried for hours in that car. I wondered if the students walking by wondered if there was anything wrong with me. That girl just crying in her car. And I remember it was a green two-door Camry. That was my special place. Because I felt that's where I first personally met Jesus Christ. And he showed me, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he is real. But what's even more, he showed me how much he loved me. And that changed my whole life in two ways. First, I no longer had a problem with that disconnect. He showed me that yes, his standard is holiness. It's extremely high. It's not achievable. It's not attainable. And he didn't expect me to attain it. That's why he died on the cross for me and for everyone, because that's what he wanted. He wanted us to come to him and to have a relationship with him. And the second thing that transformed my life that semester is that after meeting Jesus Christ and knowing how much he loved me, it was hands down. For the rest of my life, I told him, you can have me. You can have all of me. And that's how I moved forward from college. And I would say that every major decision that I made was because I wanted to serve God. So when I was in pharmacy school, I found out fast that you had to work weekends. Almost every pharmacy is open on the weekends, and if you worked hospital, you were working weekends, nights, and probably holidays. So I thought, well, God, that's probably going to be a problem if I want to serve you, because I was leading the youth group Bible study on Saturday nights, and on Sunday we have worship. So I was looking around. I tried a couple different things like nuclear pharmacy, and when near graduation, I interned at a place that was very little known. It was called managed care pharmacy. Basically, you did a lot of paperwork, and so I graduated. And I looked for a job, and nothing really seemed to work out. I worked in a community retail pharmacy, but then that place where I interned, that managed care pharmacy, they were hiring, and they worked Monday through Friday and Saturday mornings from 9 to 1. So I was in. I really didn't enjoy, like it was a really exciting work, who wants to be a paper pusher? But I said, God, if it'll guarantee me like no work on Saturday and Sunday, Saturday evenings and Sunday, I'll do it. And so it actually paid lower than my retail pharmacy friends, but I went there, I interviewed, and I walked out thinking I wasn't going to get the job, but God, like I said, paved the way, and a couple of weeks later they called me and I got the job. I had no idea what managed care pharmacy is, but I think that God opened that door for me, and now I am still in managed care pharmacy. It's excellent. It's an excellent field to be in, and it's very hard to get into. And I believe that my desire to just not work weekends was blessed by God in my career and professionally. So that's what I want to share with you, that, put God at the center of your life. Believe in his word. If he said he's going to take care of you, then he's going to take care of you. Just make your choices, make your decisions around him, and honor him first. Yeah, my mom has tried to find her, but it's just so hard because we only have a name. My dad only had a picture of her when she was 2 years old. So it's like he didn't even have a picture of her when she was grown. So it's just really difficult because it's only a name. And I mean, through the years, I try to Google her name or I search it on Facebook. but it's I never get any hits. 𝗠𝗨𝗦𝗜𝗖, like, and our name used to be K-I-E-M, but when we did the paper here, when we got to America, he just simplified it to K-I-M. If you would like to visit our church, we're located on 2712 Northwest 23rd Street. Our service times are at 10 a.m., the Vietnamese service, and for those of you who want to attend the English service, we have English service at 11:15 every Sunday morning. If you'd like to come visit us, we'd welcome many visitors anytime.
And magnificent in wisdom, this is different from religion, beautiful, bountiful living. My soul is in submission to